My name is Allison Grace, and I turned 47 today. It was my birthday, a Friday. Seattle was cloudy, as usual, but there was something strange in the air. A quiet heaviness, like before a storm. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. as always. Made myself coffee, checked my email. The first message was from my daughter Emma. She studies at Berkeley and had sent me an e-card and ordered flowers, lilies, and peonies, my favorites. I smiled. Felt like crying, but in a good way. 3 minutes later, a second email from HR. Subject: mandatory Zoom invitation. Today, 10 a.m. PT. Text: please join a required call with HR and leadership. Link attached. No greeting, no signature, no explanation. I read the email 3 times, felt my fingers grow cold despite the coffee mug in my hand. Inhale. Exhale. I wasn't panicking, no, but there was tension in my body, like someone silently aimed a rifle at me. This was not an ordinary morning. This was a morning that shouldn't have been. Honestly, I knew. Deep down, I knew. In corporate America, it always starts with smiles and ends with a mandatory Zoom. But women like me have learned to pretend we don't feel. Because if you feel, you're emotional. If you don't, you're detached. We're always caught in between. I looked out the window. The rain had started, that light, northern drizzle that couldn't decide whether to become real rain or not. I remembered March. The month when Litracor, the company where I had worked as COO for almost 7 years, was on the verge of collapse. Our deal partners from Austin Halberd Capital started pulling back. They didn't trust the new CEO, didn't understand the product, and most importantly, saw no strategy. Everything was pointing to us losing a $120 million funding round. And then, I stepped in. I wrote a 38-page night report, created a crisis board, rewrote the roadmap, pulled 3 key engineers out of vacation within 3 days, and spoke directly to Morgan Vincent, a senior partner at Halberd. We were on a call at 2:15 a.m. and he said, "I trust you, not your CEO, you." Within a week, the deal was saved. $120 million secured. TechCrunch and Wired wrote, Litracor back on track. Investors regain confidence. Inside the company, silence. No thank you, no all hands update. As if it all happened by itself. Then the little signs began. They stopped inviting me to key calls. My team's slides appeared in presentations without my initials. One of the new VPs, a 26-year-old product visionary named Chad, said in a meeting, "We need a fresher rhythm in ops. Faster tempo. More Gen Z energy." I said nothing, just nodded. Because, I'm a woman. I've learned to listen, even when they say I'm not being heard. 10 a.m. I sat in front of the screen, changed into a blazer. Just in case. 2 people joined the Zoom, Leslie from HR with a voice like a support bot, and Nick, the interim CEO who 6 months ago had come to me for career advice. He started with a smile. "Allison, happy birthday. Thank you for joining." Pause. "We want to acknowledge your incredible contribution to Litracor, especially during Q1, but..." There's always a but. But we're moving in a different direction. Creating a more agile, younger executive team with faster decision cycles, which means I listened as if through cotton wool. Numbers, HR bonus, NDA, last day today. No need to come back to the office. Through all of it, I heard only one thing. "You were incredible, Allison, but you no longer fit." They ended the call. I closed the laptop. Saturday there. For about 10 minutes. I didn't cry, didn't get angry, just sat. You know what was strange? At the very second I was fired on Zoom, the doorbell rang. A courier. Flowers from Emma. Lilies and peonies. With a note. "You're my hero. Happy birthday, Mom." I smiled. And thought, they have no idea who they just lost. If you've ever worked at a startup, you know this feeling. That subtle, almost imperceptible moment when the air in the office changes. When people start speaking more quietly. When coffee breaks get shorter. When someone from marketing starts showing up at 7 a.m. for no reason. And you realize panic is in the air. For us at Litracore, that moment came in January. I remember on a Monday morning all-hands call, our CEO Jared Kelly said a bit too cheerfully, "We're in a great position going into Q1. And that same day, I got an email from our investors. Halberd Capital is reconsidering participation in Series C. The reason? Lack of clear operational roadmap. They were about to pull $120 million. It wasn't just a blow, it was a collapse. By then, we had already laid off 14 people after cutting the QA team. 2 key projects, an AI module for enterprise clients and Oracle integration, were on hold. And worst of all, the team was lost and confused. People didn't know who to trust. The CTO resigned. The head of growth moved to Miami and disappeared from Slack for 12 days. Everyone looked to Jared, and Jared, he spoke well. But he didn't make decisions. I wasn't the CEO. I was the COO, Chief Operating Officer. My job was to make sure everything didn't fall apart. I didn't build visions, I built reality. When it all started, I didn't wait for an invitation. I just stepped forward. I gathered all the project managers on a Friday evening, set hard deadlines, brought back discipline, created a crisis roadmap: 6 weeks, 3 phases, 1 goal, save Series C. I spoke to every department personally, pulled people out of apathy, wrote reports at 3 a.m., led calls with Halberd Capital when Jared couldn't connect. Morgan Vincent, a senior partner at the fund, once told me, "You're the reason we haven't pulled out yet. We did the impossible. Engineers worked weekends. Clients we almost lost came back." After 5 weeks, the MVP of the new system passed internal testing. Oracle approved the pilot. And Halberd sent the final document: funding confirmed, transfer scheduled. We survived, and not just survived, we grew. At the all-hands call, Jared, of course, thanked the team. Then, somewhat reluctantly, added, "And huge credit to Allison Grace, who truly led us through this." Cameras flashed. Applause. Someone typed in the chat, "Queen of Ops." I didn't smile. I knew gratitude was just air. Decisions, that's power. At that moment, I thought, maybe he gets it. Maybe things will change. But I was wrong. 2 weeks later, the first changes began. Jared hired a young VP of Product Chat, a guy from an Austin startup. He declared, "We're moving toward a new Gen Z-aligned structure." My documents became too heavy. My style, too old school. My reports, not visual enough. I was still handling things. But on every call, I felt it how, slowly, millimeter by millimeter, they were pushing me out. When TechCrunch published the article "Litracore Finds Its Footing," my name wasn't mentioned. The photo showed Jared smiling. The caption read, "Visionary CEO leads recovery." I wasn't angry. I was used to it. Because I'm a woman. 47. In tech, in leadership. In a country where freshness matters more than depth. I didn't want applause. I wanted justice. But back then, I still thought I could earn it. I was wrong. Sometimes, all it takes to sense danger is silence. After everything we went through, March at Litracore was strangely quiet. Too quiet. It had only been 6 weeks since I helped the company hold on to $120 million in funding. But instead of clarity, things got blurry. First, Jared disappeared. He stopped showing up on team calls. On Slack, working on investor strategy. He wrote less, answered vaguely. "He's busy," Laura from People Ops told me. Lots of external meetings. I wondered, with who? With the investors I'd convinced to stay? Then, new faces appeared. First Riley, 27, VP of Future Platforms. Then Miranda, a former TikTok creator, now head of culture strategy. You could hear them immediately in meetings. Let's gamify the onboarding pipeline. We need brand motion, not just function. What if we rename departments? Something more fluid. I sat across, feeling like I was watching a play I wasn't invited to. They didn't look at me. didn't address me by name. They ignored me. Subtly, skillfully, consistently. By the third week of March, I sent a memo. 30 pages. Risk analysis. Expense forecasts. Scaling scenarios. A plan to retain key clients. I simply called it Operational Leverage, Q2 and Beyond. Sent it directly to Jared and the board. Expected at least a thank you. A day passed, then 2, then a week. Nothing. No mention, no comment, no reaction. At the next strategy call, Riley was showing off animations in Figma. Miranda was discussing brand vibes with the design team. And my memo, basically, the rescue roadmap, was somewhere in the Gmail archives, like a forgotten file. I started noticing small things. Meetings I wasn't invited to anymore. Reports that someone else was preparing. Projects that used to go through me now diverted to a parallel track. Slack phrases popped up. Let's check with the new ops lead. Miranda is shaping the new team dynamic. Riley's taking point on this. Me? I felt like I was fading away. One evening, I stayed late at the office. The team had long gone home. I sat in a conference room, closed my laptop, just stared at the wall. They're laying the groundwork, I thought. Something's brewing. And the scariest part, I knew exactly what. It wasn't a mistake. It was a process. They weren't planning to fire me suddenly. They were pushing me out slowly. No drama, no emails, no loud words. Just taking away influence. My voice. My control. They wanted me to leave on my own. To think I was burned out. That I was tired. That I was no longer needed. But I knew myself. I wasn't tired. I wasn't broken. I was just watching them build their game, thinking I was already a pawn. And you know what? I decided, let them play, I'll watch, until the end. 10 a.m. My birthday. I brewed coffee in my favorite Sonoma mug, a gift from my daughter. Put on a sage-colored blouse and joined Zoom early. A habit. Old corporate discipline. The meeting invite had just 2 lines. Subject: mandatory Zoom HR check-in. From people at litracore.io. On the participant list, Ashley Reynolds, VP of HR, Tyler Vance, Interim CEO. No Jared. No colleagues. Just those 2. The window opened. I saw them. And everything became clear immediately. Good morning, Allison, Ashley began, sitting up straight. Her voice was the kind practiced in front of the mirror many times. Thank you for joining. We understand this is unexpected, but we want to be transparent. Tyler was silent. Young, smooth, 33. Once a marketing director. Now sitting in a black Litracore t-shirt with a tight smile. The kind of smile someone wears when given an unpleasant task and just wants to get it over with. Allison, as you know, the company is restructuring. We're reviewing the organizational structure and building a more agile management model, Ashley said. I already knew what was coming. The words flashed on the screen like lightning. Restructuring. Your role is now considered redundant. We're going in a different direction. I stared at the screen. No wrinkle on my forehead. No question. No blame. Just polite silence. Inside, everything was boiling. Burning. Cracking. Thousands of hours. Endless calls. Markets, presentations, worries, crises I held together with my own hands. And in response, redundant. No, thank you. No, we're sorry. No, you saved us, and we haven't forgotten. Just, it's not personal, it's structural. I nodded, slightly. Not for them, for myself. I recorded the call. Zoom's auto-record feature on. No, I wasn't planning anything dramatic. I just wanted a witness. Because conversations like this shouldn't vanish into thin air. Do you have any questions, Allison? Ashley asked. I looked straight into the camera. Number, thank you for telling me personally. Tyler finally spoke. We sincerely appreciate everything you've done for Litracor. You've been an incredible asset, and I raised my hand. It's okay, Tyler, I understand. He paused, nodded. They left the call. Zoom closed. Silence. My Palo Alto home stood in complete silence. On the table, a bouquet from my daughter. On the screen, the dark Zoom window. On the clock, 10:19. On the calendar, my birthday. I sat for a few minutes. Not moving, not breathing. Then tears. Not hysteria, not pain. Just sadness from betrayal. A sadness that escapes the chest, like steam. I gave myself a minute. Or 10. Then, I laughed. Loud, sarcastic, almost theatrical. Well then, Allison, I said aloud. Happy birthday, dear. That laughter was not weakness. It was the first spark of strength just beginning to wake. Because I knew I was fired over Zoom. But this was not the end of the story. It was just the turning point. I don't know how long I sat there staring at the blank screen. Maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour. The coffee went cold. The flowers wilted slightly. And I realized I had to do something, anything, just to keep from losing my mind. I got up. Put on a coat over my pajamas that read, "Still in beta." Slipped my feet into sneakers, grabbed the half-empty glass of cherry Pinot, and stepped outside. 6 minutes later, I was standing in line at La Petite Crumb, a bakery on the corner in Menlo Park. Wine in hand, fatigue on my face, pajamas, 39 unread messages on my phone, all from colleagues and my daughter. Are you okay? Did something happen? Tell me this is a joke. In front of me, a guy about 20 years old, headphones on, wearing a Y Combinator tee, was grabbing a muffin and a cold brew. The cashier looked at me with polite Californian confusion. Anything else for you, she asked. I looked at her, raised my glass, and said, They fired me, over Zoom, after I saved the company from a $120 million collapse. He blinked. Baguette? Baguette. With a baguette and wine, I went back home. And called Julia. Julia Sands, my friend since Stanford GSB days. Now a partner at a law firm that advises startups and tears investors apart in court without a trace of makeup. I said right away. I recorded the Zoom. I just wanted to leave a trace. A pause. The sound of her swallowing something stronger than latte. You recorded it? Yes, automatic. I have the feature on. Did they know it was being recorded? It's my Zoom profile. They joined my call. Pause. Then only 3 words. They're in trouble. Half an hour later, she forwarded the recording to a private chat with colleagues. One of them, her acquaintance, a labor law specialist in San Francisco. Named Josh Morales. 41, corporate cases expert, loved structural failures. When he listened to the Zoom, his reply was almost theatrical. This is textbook retaliation, and I love a good corporate mess. He sent me a voice message. I listened on the balcony, still in pajamas, half-eaten baguette in hand. Allison, they didn't just wrong you. It was a punitive move after you took initiative and saved their deal. It's a violation. Clear. Visible. On the recording. And you know what's the kicker? They did it on your birthday. I love working these cases. Especially when I have on my side a woman who refuses to be silent. I sat there, listening to his voice, and for the first time all day I didn't feel anger, but a sharp sense of justice slowly coming back. I wasn't looking for a fight. But if a fight came to me, I knew exactly where to aim my response. Because now this game wasn't just about me. Now I had a lawyer on my side, hungry for blood, and precedent. My morning after getting fired didn't start with anger. It started with notifications. LinkedIn, Slack, Signal over 40 messages by noon. Usually when someone's let go, the team stays silent. Especially in cultures like ours at Litracor. Fast, quiet, no drama. But not this time. The first message came from Rochelle, our product manager in Austin. You were the reason we didn't leave. With you at the helm, it felt like there was an adult in the room. Then Kyle, a DevOps engineer I once debated Kubernetes with for 3 hours straight, wrote, "They're afraid of you because you knew what you were doing." And that scared everyone pretending they did. I held my phone, rereading these messages again and again. They were genuine, fearless, without flattery. That evening, a message came from Lucas, a developer at our Boston office. He's usually quiet, rarely turns on his camera during calls. But his words hit me straight. "They're building an echo chamber. You were the last adult in the room." I read that 3 times. The last adult in the room. That's not said lightly. It wasn't just support. It was a diagnosis. I realized the problem wasn't just me. The problem is a system where maturity equals threat and confidence equals audacity. I wasn't fired for mistakes. I was removed because I no longer fit the game, a game I decided to stop playing by their rules. But when you're the last adult in the room, maybe it's time to build your own. If they thought I'd leave quietly, they forgot who they were dealing with. The next morning, Julia, my friend and lawyer, was already sitting in my kitchen, with the kind of look she gets in only 2 situations, when someone attacks her clients, or when a good Riesling is finished. "Did you record everything?" she asked. I nodded. "Perfect. This is textbook retaliation, direct revenge because you were too good and too inconvenient." Within a week, she assembled a team, an employment lawyer, a corporate violations specialist, and a PR risk consultant. I learned more about U.S. labor lawsuits than in my entire corporate career. An official complaint was filed with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC. Discrimination based on age, retaliation, and constructive dismissal. A few days later, a journalist from Business Insider emailed me. "We heard Litracor fired a top executive over Zoom. Is it true you saved a $120 million deal just weeks before that?" I stayed silent. I needed to process it all, but she didn't back down. 3 days later, another email. "We're not only interested in what happened, but why. You're not just an employee, you're a story." And then it all started to spiral. Whispers in the industry, then leaks. First, an anonymous Medium post. Allison Grace was too principled. She didn't play office politics. She demanded accountability from the CEO, the team, the partners. That made her inconvenient. On Twitter, now X, someone posted a slide from an internal presentation. "We need more dynamic leadership, less institutional memory." They called me institutional memory, as if experience is dust, not a solid foundation everything stands on. Journalists from Bloomberg, TechCrunch, Fast Company started reaching out, some with sympathy, others hungry for a scoop, but I stayed silent. Until my lawyer called and said, "They just tried to erase your profile from the website, corporate releases, and even the internal archive. They don't realize this isn't about you anymore, it's about them. It's time to fight back." I hung up, sat down at the table, opened my laptop, and started writing. Not a complaint, not a press release. The truth. In my own words, without filters. After several days of silence, I sat down at my laptop and started writing, not just a LinkedIn post or a tweet, but a full-fledged column for Business Insider. The headline was blunt and sharp. They said I was redundant. Here's what that really meant. In the text, I explained that the word redundant wasn't just a formality or an HR cliché. It was a mask for fear and insecurity. For an unwillingness to admit that maturity, experience, and common sense seem to have lost their value in today's industry. I wrote about how, in the age of startups and hype, everyone chases youth and fast growth culture. But they forget that without a solid foundation, without people who know how to navigate business through crises, doubts, and failures, any hype sooner or later ends in collapse. The column included real examples from my life, how I literally saved a $120 million deal, rebuilt investor trust, and kept the company afloat when everything seemed to fall apart. I wasn't complaining. I was telling the truth, the voice of someone who knows the value of their work. The reaction was immediate. Tens of thousands of reposts, likes, and comments within hours. Thought leaders and well-known business gurus quoted me, calling the column an important voice in the ageism era and a mythbreaker about the value of the older generation in tech. One of the most memorable quotes that spread across social media was, "Redundancy is a word used by those afraid to lose their relevance." In the comments under the article, others shared stories, people like me who face subtle but real age-related pressures. Many shared personal experiences, supported me, and said they finally heard a voice that resonated. For me, it wasn't just success. It was a signal that I'm not alone, that there are many more of us than it seems. And most importantly, the fight for recognition isn't over, but now it's no longer fought alone. I realized my story wasn't just about me, it's about a generation that keeps changing the rules of the game, even when it feels like they're trying to erase it. And I was ready to keep going. After the column and the resonance it created, I realized one simple thing. I no longer want to and cannot play by their rules. Those rules, the race for youth, the fear of maturity, the constant feeling that you're about to be replaced, they kill the real value of experience. I decided to create something of my own, a place where maturity and experience are not just accepted but become the core assets. That's how Clarity Guild was born, a consulting platform for those who have been fired, pushed aside, or unfairly overlooked because of their age, courage, or honesty. The name is no accident. Clarity means transparency, understanding, honesty. Guild means a community of professionals who support each other and value experience. Our first client was a small San Francisco startup, one that had rejected me a year ago. They needed exactly what I do best, bringing order, building strategy, and creating real teams. I was no longer an employee whose voice was ignored in meetings. I was a partner, an expert, a mentor. Clarity Guild grew quickly thanks to referrals, because each client's story was similar to mine. Experienced, smart people who know how to make business stronger but simply weren't given the chance. I started working with companies from different states, from New York to Austin, Seattle to Miami, and in every meeting, every call, I saw attitudes toward age and maturity changing. There was no longer a need to prove my value every day. I had created a space where experience was not a burden but the fuel for growth. And you know what's surprising? This was exactly what many were looking for. Because in a world of rapid growth and constant change, maturity is not only depth but also resilience. Clarity Guild became more than just consulting, it became a movement. We helped companies grow without forgetting that behind every success are people, their experience, and their wisdom. And I realized this is not the end of my story, it's only the beginning. Several months had passed since my lawyer filed the complaint against LitraCore. We worked seamlessly, he understood every nuance of the case. I shared the facts and emotions, and he turned them into a powerful legal arsenal. When they offered us a quiet settlement, I initially couldn't believe it. The amount? 7 figures? Yes, that many, and it wasn't just compensation, it was recognition of my worth. A sign that even in a world where youth is often valued more, experience and integrity won't go unrewarded. My lawyer, Julia, was practically jumping for joy. "It's like the Super Bowl," she said, "but you're both the team and the trophy." And it's true, we didn't just win the case, we won the right to say that maturity is a strength, not an obstacle. But do you know why I'm truly smiling? Not because of the money. Not because I got compensated. But because I refused to let their silence drown out my voice. I didn't let them silence, ignore, or write me off. Freedom is not just about leaving a toxic environment. Freedom is about creating your own reality and walking your own path. The final scene of my story, me giving a lecture at Harvard. The hall is full of students and professors listening intently. I quote what I said in an interview. "Don't call us leftovers. We're legacy code, and without us, your system crashes." Applause, looks of respect. Because we are not leftovers. We are the code on which the future is built. And this story isn't about how I got fired. It's about how I found myself again. And about how true strength is being yourself, no matter what.